Now, as part of this fantasy football draft tips series, I'm actually talking about the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts of what to do when you actually are in your fantasy football draft room. In the last video, I talked about the importance of drafting with your head and not your heart, and avoiding also having too many players from one team on your fantasy team, and in particular, too many players from your favorite team. And today, I want to talk about something that really grinds my gears and chaps my ass every single year come fantasy football draft time. I see it. It astounds me and it stupefies me as to the lack of logic that so many people engage in when it comes to the drafting of kickers. Yes, I understand kickers are people too. And yes, I understand in fantasy football that kickers can score points too. And I understand that sometimes you could have a kicker that scores more than one or two of your running backs on the bench throughout a season, or they could score more points than your number 3 wide receiver or your tight end or your flex position player, what have you. But every year I see this. I see people, once they get to the 7th, 8th, ninth round of a fantasy football draft, they draft a kicker. Why? Kickers have zero trade value. Frankly, when it comes to fantasy football, there's not that much difference between the first kicker and, let's say, the 20th ranked kicker in terms of points scored. I'll give you an example. 2013 season, the number 1 kicker, Stephen Gostkowski. The number 20 kicker, Greg Zuerlein. Their total difference in points from 1 to 20 was about 46 points. That's less than 3 points per week in a 16-week fantasy football season. Less than 3 points a week. Yet every season I see some ding-dong dumb dick draft a Gostkowski or the 7th or 8th or ninth round. Then I see a bunch of other kickers go, and it's like, why? You can't trade them. You could, frankly, a lot of cases, pick up somebody on the waiver wire at some point in time during the season where that guy is going to have as many points at that point in time, if not more, than the kicker that you drafted. In a lot of cases, you've left yourself very little fantasy football roster flexibility. So when it comes time for that kicker's bye week, you're going to waive them. There's just so many things pointing to the stupidity of drafting these damn kickers early. Yet I don't understand why so many people choose to do it every single freaking year. The only thing to me that's worse than this is drafting a backup kicker. Why in the hell would you waste one of your precious bench spots that you could devote to a running back or a wide receiver or a tight end, maybe somebody that could go into one of your flex positions in a bye week, on a freaking backup kicker? Are you really getting to that point where you're going to sit there and play the matchups with the kicker on a week-in, week-out basis? If you're getting to that point in fantasy football, then you're overthinking it. You're overanalyzing it. And you're ultimately going to screw the pooch, and you're going to lose, and you're more often than not going to pick poorly. Think about this again. If you're in a 10 or 12 team league and you only have to have one kicker, why would you sit there and waste a premium draft slot somewhere between round 7 to 10 on a freaking kicker? All the while, there's all this depth at running back and wide receiver and tight end, guys that you're going to need because of injury, potentially trade scenarios, knowing damn good and well that nobody's going to want to trade for your fucking kicker. Knowing damn good and well that your number 1 ranked kicker might score 2 points more on a given week than the number 10, 11, or 12th ranked kicker. Yet all the while, that player that you passed on a round 7 or round 8 because you just had to get that freaking kicker could end up scoring 5 or 6 points more, 8 points more, 10 points more as a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, or a flex position player in a given week compared to somebody that missed a bye or somebody else that you have on your bench. It just astounds me. It's just ridiculous. Very rare is the occasion where I see somebody that has done anything other than wait till the last 2 rounds to draft a kicker actually win a fantasy football league championship. Because if you're sitting there in the early portion or the middle rounds of your draft and you're worried about your kicker, then your priorities are in the wrong place and you're really not that good of a fantasy football player. Dispute me if you want in the comments, but it's fucking true. Again, also think about it this way. A lot of times these preseason rankings for kickers end up being totally skewed. Yes, Gostkowski and Prater consistently produce, and that's all fine and good. But I had Steven Hauschka in 2013. I got him on waivers after a few weeks in. He ended up as the number 4 ranked kicker. I waited until the last round to draft a kicker. I drafted freaking Greg Zuerlein. He was number 20th by the end of the season. I was able to get Hauschka waivers in all 4 leagues that I was in like week freaking 4. And he ended up being the number 4 ranked fantasy football kicker for the entire season. So it's almost to the point where I shouldn't even have bothered drafting the damn kicker, waiting a few weeks and seeing what the hell plays out. Now, you wouldn't do that because you don't want to sit there and lose the potential points you'd be getting out of that position. But the point is, don't overanalyze it. Don't overthink it. There is too much to lose and too little to gain by drafting a damn kicker early. And the only thing worse than drafting one kicker early is coming back around and ding-dong-dung-dick drafting another one later on. Draft one kicker, draft them late, and I promise you, if you devote your energies to other areas of your fantasy football roster and lineup come draft day, you're going to be better off for it, and you'll actually be making your fantasy football league playoffs. I promise you.